Welcome to Rux Balls and Oval Balls. We're back with episode 3 of season 2 of the fans' favourite rugby podcast, hosted by the fans' favourite rugby podcast hosts. It's me, Dave, joined as ever by a surprisingly battered and bruised Rory. Rory, say hello.
Hello, David. Hello, listeners. Yes, I've taken a few bangs at the weekend, but lovely to be back out on the paddock and just feel those hits again.
Oh, well, you for the listener who, obviously, in an audio format, hard to describe, Rory is donning what is quite a lovely black eye and what looks like a bit of bruising around the face. Is there story time, Rory? Is there a story time here?
Well, we had the opening game of the Lions season. Bit of a disappointing venture, if I have to say, David. An opening loss, there's no other way to put it, really, against Chelmsford Seconds, who turned up with a bit of panache and a bit of attitude and showed us up for the first 45 or 50 minutes or so before we got our asses in gear and actually started to play a bit of decent rugby. But a good opening hit out. Yours truly making yards, singular.
Yeah, that's what I'd expect.
And tackles, plural.
More than one?
Which was more than one tackle. I would say more than 10, possibly.
Wowzers.
In real desperation a lot of the time. Hence the black eye in the bruised shoulders and the bruised chest and the bruised ribs.
So the tackle height was really playing to your strengths, obviously, because I'm guessing those are from knees, shoulders, heads and toes.
Yeah. One of the things that I've found with the new tackle laws is I'm really having to incorporate some flexibility exercises into my routine just to ensure that I'm actually able to get low enough.
Yes, because how tall are you these days? 6'4", 6'5"?
Oh, these days at least 6'4".
Yeah, at least 6'4". Yeah, back in my day, you were at least 6'4" as well then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long way down for a big chap.
It's a very long way down when you've got quite a considerable bulk to have to get all the way back up again. So after some time, the lower back does start to scream at you.
It's a tale as old as time and something that backs will never understand, and that is why forwards are the real athletes and why we are champions for the more blessed with mass individuals within the sport.
Speaking of, David, you seem to be donning some apparel to champion those blessed with bulk.
Oh, absolutely. I'm wearing my Bristol Beers, enjoy the pun, Bristol Beers kit that the Man v Fat Bristol team is donning this weekend at Stourbridge Rugby Club in Dudley, where we are taking on the Man v Fat National Rugby Tournament, the first one ever. And we're gunning for it. We're going for the victory.
Excellent.
Based purely on zero knowledge of any of the other clubs and having pure arrogance to think we're better than everyone else.
Of course.
And why else would we be any other way? But yes, very much looking forward to that venture. All in the name of losing weight, even though this season I have a net gain this season. But I have my reasons. Post-Gallstone life. Got to enjoy it, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yes, but we're going for the victory. But I feel like we've done an excellent job there of filling the much required banter section there, Rory. A little bit of chit chat, but this podcast isn't about us. As much as I'd love it to be about us purely, we aren't here to talk about us. We are here to talk about rugby union going on across the world, and we're going to talk about some domestic rugby. We're going to talk about some international rugby. And I'm going to go with some sort of analogy here that I want us to keep our passports at home for a little while, Rory, because we're going to take a flight domestically and we're going to talk Prem Rugby and Prem Rugby Cup. But before I get on to the Prem Rugby Cup, little bit of news coming out recently, I think the last day or two. Prem Rugby introducing everyone's favourite thing, the 20-minute red card, Rory. Obviously with some adaptations to how we've seen it used elsewhere, but this is an open floor opportunity for you to really voice an opinion on the 20-minute red card, should you wish to do so.
Oh, is this the sort of thing that garners opinion in rugby?
Apparently
I assumed everyone was fine with it.
Apparently it garners opinion and really gets under the skin of certain groups of fans, I feel.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't exactly know how to feel about it because in the Women's World Cup where I've seen it, I've not been that upset about players coming back on the field after a 20-minute red card. But it doesn't sit right to me. It just feels like if something's a red card, you're off. You're penalised for the rest of the game. Maybe that's just a bit of an old-fashioned view of it, and maybe I should try and get a bit contemporary.
Get
But
with the times, Rory.
I don't know, just an old fogey over here who thinks, if you commit a red card offence, then, you just suffer for the rest of the game.
But as the other side would say, the individual is still suffering for the rest of the game. But why should everyone else suffer and then have to make up for their absence? 20 minutes without them, and then someone else comes on their place. The individual that's done something wrong is still off for the entire game. It's just the team's not getting punished quite as much. Do you understand that point of view?
I mean, to an extent, I think this is fairly common in the US sports, right? You get ejected from the game, but the team doesn't have to go down a player.
Yeah.
I think that's the case in baseball, basketball, and the NFL actually.
Yeah, all the balls.
Yeah. So I get from that point of view because what you're really trying to create is a fan experience. You're trying to not make a game suffer because of the actions of an individual. So I do understand that point of view. And you have to a certain extent, you have to take things from the view of this is entertainment rather than this is just about the purity of the sport.
Mm.
So, instinctively, I'm not necessarily fully on board with it, but I'm reserving judgment till I see it put in place. Don't get me wrong, the first time Gloucester lose a game because the team had a man come back on the field after 20 minutes, I'll be furious and I'll be calling for the head of the law book writers. But up until that point, I suppose I'm willing to reserve judgment on it.
Okay, that's good. It's good that you're remaining open-minded. And obviously with the tweaks that they are introducing, so that they're not going to use a bunker. It's not going to be TMO-led. It is just going to be the decision of a referee. I quite like that tweak because it might, a lot of people have an issue with the bunker, that it goes on behind closed doors. It remains to be seen whether referees will just use this as an excuse to maybe not dole out red cards when they should have done in the past. We'll see. I don't know how I feel about 2 yellow cards automatically being a 20-minute red card. That just feels like a shift change. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. There's been one thing with rugby. It tries a lot of adaptations to the laws. Some good, some bad. But generally, after a few years of them being in place, you forget what it was like before they were there. I'm hoping this becomes one of those things that you just get used to.
I mean, a lot of people weren't happy about the 50-22, and that's turned out to be one of the best law changes they've made in recent years.
Yeah, I love it. So, who knows? Maybe it'll work in the Prem. We'll see. But that was that's probably the only bit of news in Prem rugby world. But it would not be a Season 2 Rucks Balls and Oval Balls podcast if we didn't talk about the Newcastle Red Bulls and touch on that performance in the Prem Rugby Cup. We'll go through some of the other games, but I think as the Red Bulls game was probably the highlight game of the round, the only one on TV, and was quite an impressive performance, I feel that's one to dwell on for a little while. Did you watch the game, Maury, and what did you take away from it?
Yeah, I managed to watch the game twice. Both times drunk, unfortunately. So some of the details might be a little bit hazy. No, I did manage to watch it, and I thought was Newcastle played in much the same way as they did last season, but with a on average better pack that was able to more than match Quinn's depleted pack. If we're being frank about it, there wasn't the strongest Quinn side of all time. So I think possibly to an extent we should slightly reserve judgment entirely on this. Yeah. But I think what we saw was to an extent what Newcastle are going to be capable of this season in terms of competing, because they can still use all the elements they had last season, the graft, the toughness, the physicality they were able to bring at times, but they may now have the opportunity to pull off an 80-minute performance against teams that have bigger squads than them. And that does make them a more dangerous proposition than they were, because last season you always got the sense that, even if they were in it with 50 minutes to go, by the time 80 minutes came up, they'd have run well out of path.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's an indication that they are no longer the whipping boys. Considering the players they've still got to join them from the ones they've announced, that team is only going to get stronger. So I fully accept the argument that it was a heavily rotated and youthful Harlequin side, and it was quite a seasoned Newcastle side. There is still a lot of players to be brought into that Newcastle team as well. But for me, when I watched that looked like a team of players who really have added motivation and morale and, happiness.
A crowd.
9,000 for a Prem Rugby Cup game at Kingston Park. I don't know I can't remember off the top of my head the sort of attendances they were getting last year in the Prem.
It wasn't that.
But it wasn't that. So it's already showing interest is high. And the fact that they're going to be getting wins, if they're going to start getting wins in front of this new crowd, it's how you start building momentum and a bit of feel good, which is something that has not existed at Kingston Park for quite some time.
Well, that's it. I mean, what they need to do this season is create enough positivity and excitement around the club that from next year, when inevitably a few more star names start to rock up, which we know they will, and you'll start seeing those announced quicker than you think.
And has Anton Dupont gone early? Have you seen the picture?
Yeah.
That's an absolute troll post, isn't it?
I mean, I liked it, and don't get me wrong. If Dupont ends up at Newcastle, I mean, I'll have some split loyalties.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I really don't think that's going to happen. But would I like to see it happen? Sure.
Sure would.
But yes, I think I found that quite funny. And how about... Sorry, carry on.
No, I liked it a lot. Please.
I was just going to say, what did you make of the performance of Amanaki Mafi?
Well, I think he showed exactly what he's capable of. He's direct, he's mobile, and he is power. Which is basically the three qualities that Steve Diamond likes in a number 8.
Yeah,
and he absolutely fits that mold.
And the fourth quality of being a man of few words. If you were to catch his touchline interview, I appreciate English, probably not his first language, but
he's been in Japan a long time. Maybe conducting interviews in the Northeast isn't quite something he's comfortable with.
No. But what a performance! Yeah, my immediate reaction after watching that is at I think £3 or £3.5 million in fantasy rugby. Not a bad player to get in your fantasy rugby teams, people. If you want to join, make sure you use the joining code to join the Ruxmalls and Overballs Fantasy League. Little plug there for everyone. Great plug. I was also mightily impressed by Max Clark.
Yeah. I mean, I thought he was a real shining light for them last season. A really good pickup. I always rated him at Bath. But he's not a star man necessarily in a team like that. But in Newcastle's team last season, I thought he was one of the most effective backs they had. He's more powerful than you'd necessarily think just to look at him. He's quite a big lump, but he's got a good skill set, reasonably quick. But he's just a dedicated player. He's one of those squad fillers that if you're a real sort of nerdy club fan, he's the sort of player you love. Same reason why I liked Freddie Clark at Gloucester. It's just someone who sort of isn't necessarily going to be the star man across the league.
No,
but just a grafter that you really, really love in your team. And I think he's one of those players that Steve Diamond will really like.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he screams to me as like one of the players that a coach would just love to have, because he does just play 100% all or nothing. And that came across in that game. From a Harlequins perspective, hard to take too many positives from what did at times turn into quite a pedestrian fixture, I say, maybe in the middle 40.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a fair assessment. I suspect what they were just hoping for was to see if any of the younger players in particular were going to be capable of making a step up earlier in the season. And I mean, mixed results. Obviously, Bradley got a try. I think Sean Kerr at 12 is definitely one to watch this season. Cassius Cleves in there, and he had a few nice touches, but maybe didn't get the open prairie you'd have wanted. Nice try by Riley, the hooker that's been around for a couple of years now and is starting to look like he could be.
Well, obviously, because they've let Jabulu go to Sale, they were obviously backing Riley to be kind of number 2 or 3, or they have signed George Turner as well. Yeah, but Riley, he's one that I've always quite liked, but always doesn't seem to get the minutes. But yeah, as you say, he got a nice try.
Decent bit of time for his try. But no, I mean, honestly, not much to come for that Quins performance. And to be honest, off the back of Danny Wilson last week as well, to the Wales setup, it's not necessarily all that positive.
No, it's pretty awkward timing, that, isn't it?
Yeah, they'll I assume they'll go back to having the coaching committee they had a few years ago, but
it's going to be Nick Evans, Adam Jones, kind of ruling the roost until someone else gets brought in. It just doesn't feel quite like the ideal start to a season.
No, less than ideal, and but in better news for them, they've sold out their opening home game, which I will be at with a few friends of mine. But
fantastic. Are Gloucester the visitors, or are you just going for a?
Just going because it's the geographically closest team to Essex. So
fair enough.
Gloucester are playing on Thursday in Manchester. Unfortunately, I think Quins will always still attract interest. They are still the entertainers. But for me, I think this could be a pretty average season for them on what I've seen so far.
It's hard to see them being the top 4 competitors they have been in recent years. We could be wrong. It is still incredibly early days in the sense that we're not even at day 1. Of the other fixtures, obviously, I think when you look at the team sheets, there is a real mixed bag. You can see which teams may be taking this competition more seriously from the get-go than others. My immediate eyes were drawn to the teams between Leicester and Saracens, for example, where Leicester kind of went maybe 80% full strength and Saracens went mostly academy and only lost 20 points to 7, which is an interesting result.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fairly classic sort of kids against men kind of fixture in that Saracens actually scored first. It's Michelot, nice finish. And then Leicester Tigers, in true Tigers expansive back play fashion, scored 3 maul tries before a late one to finish things off.
Oh, we're going to get accused of being anti-Tigers again already.
I'm anti-Tigers. Deal with it.
Hey, they got a bonus point win in the Premier Rugby Cup. But I think it leads to my overall point, Rory, is what do you make of this competition this season, especially considering you don't have the championship clubs in it? As a fan of Prem Rugby, does this mean anything to you, this tournament at the moment?
Nothing whatsoever. I mean, 1 game out of 4 on the telly. Not all the teams are playing every week. I mean, it's a glorified pre-season at the moment. I mean, honestly, it's as a competition, it's effectively a joke, isn't it? I mean, people are just treating this as pre-season. So, I mean, it's not really of any real note other than to see how your team might shape up for when the real rugby starts.
Yeah, and it just feels like a huge, huge missed opportunity. One, I still will not understand why Champ Rugby is not involved. That's such a glaringly obvious thing to keep doing. And 2, just with the scheduling and stuff, it just does become meaningless. Like, some clubs will take it more seriously than others, so you end up with some really lopsided results. And it's just like, what is this? What is the need that is being filled by this competition? Either set it out as this A-League competition or these kind of under-23 style competition. I'd get behind it if they were to kind of really dictate that that's what this was. Or say, like, it is just a meaningless competition that you just use as a pre-season or fixture filler through the season, because that's basically what it is now. And
it sort of has the machinations of, in the football, in the Premier League, when they all go and play these pre-season competitions around the world. And you see, like, Tottenham will say, we've retaken the whatever it be, the Intertoto Cup or something for the 3rd time. You go, I've no idea what that is.
Yes, and
It just turns out it's just
it's a
6
sport.
invitational teams turning up to Japan or something.
Yeah.
It's broadly meaningless. I mean, that being said, though, Gloucester beat Exeter, so from that point of view, it's the most important competition to have ever existed.
Yeah, I watched the highlights of that game, and you only needed to watch those 4 minutes of highlights to really garner how that is two very different teams set up in two very different ways, where Gloucester played some really nice open running rugby with some really lovely tries scored by some flowing backs moves, and Exeter just did pick and go, pick and go, pick and go, pick and go, pick and go.
Yeah. I mean, that is effectively it. Exeter 3 tries in the first half, all through maul or pick and go. And Gloucester scored 3 very nice tries and 1 maul themselves. Highlight for me, Charlie Atkinson handing off Dweber to put Ludlow in, I think it was. So that was a Dweber at 125 kegs, hooker, massive, brought in to be the all-powerful front row option for Exeter. And Charlie Atkinson, a slighter individual. I think it'd be fair to say.
That's fair.
Straight arming him and getting away. Really, really enjoyed that moment. Josiah Edwards Giraud, whose name we couldn't remember previously. Scoring a very nice try off a lovely cross kick from Rossburn, and looking like he might end up being a bit of a bolter for the squad.
I'm wondering whether he is kind of potential breakthrough player that's come out of nowhere territory this year, because what I've seen of him so far, which admittedly isn't a lot, I've liked.
He has something different.
He has something different to his game.
100%. I'm really excited to see where he goes this season. And actually, when you combine that with the other options we've got in our backline, it does start to look quite exciting from a Gloucester point of view. So, we will wait and see how things go when the actual business of the Prem comes around. But so far, I'm quietly excited about Gloucester this season and what they might achieve. And quietly gleeful that Exeter looked pretty average again.
Again, we're going to get accused of having anti-Exeter views. I'll just remind everyone that Rory is a Gloucester supporter. That comes with the territory. Talking of being a Gloucester supporter, coming with territory and not liking teams, I'm assuming you enjoyed watching Bristol get beat. One particular moment which really has made its round on social media of Lewis Rees-Zammit getting flattened by Marcy White.
I always like Marcy White.
Yeah, I imagine you enjoyed that.
Gave him the old Bosch, didn't he?
Yeah, welcome back.
No, I did enjoy this one because I thought, we thought after last week that Sale looked pretty undercooked in the previous game, and no, they looked pretty good in that team with Jabulu starting, obviously with Cohen Dickey away and looking like he had a few nice touches. Marcy White, as you say, looking as powerful as ever, and I think he's definitely one to look at this season. Bristol, I don't think Bristol will be too devastated by the way that game went. I mean, they'll probably hope to have done a little bit better, but actually, if you look at their team, the types of players they were missing, Ravuvu, obviously Rees-Zammit didn't start, Luatua wasn't there, Bill Matter wasn't there. They've got some big lads to come back into that team. So I would, if I was a Bristol fan, I'd be keeping my powder dry for the time being in terms of making any judgments on that team. But from a Sale point of view, a really good run out by them and scored some nice tries. With some of the youngsters actually showing up quite well. Curtis at 10. Controlled things pretty well, I thought. Davis at 15 had some really nice touches from what I saw.
Yeah, I've been tipped off to keep an eye on Davis this season. They're saying there's a touch of Marcus Smith about the way he plays, which
Yeah, I think he's a 10 by trade, but it's been I've seen a few bits and pieces talking him up. So no, I mean, all in all, based on the lineups, you'd have expected Sale to win that, and they overpowered Bristol in the end. But again, it's just sort of more indications that this cup competition doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah. So what we're saying is, listener, really appreciate you listening to us for the last 20 odd minutes, but it all means nothing because this competition is meaningless.
Utterly meaningless. Utterly meaningless. So we've wasted your time.
We can only apologise. But let's redeem ourselves. Let's grab our passports, Rory, because last time I heard, the international gates are opening and we're going to start talking some international rugby. And we're starting off with the Women's World Cup, which not ideally great for the metaphor around boarding flights is obviously in England. But we'll stick with it because we're in the knockout rounds, Rory, and it's getting toasty.
It's heating up, isn't it?
It is
heating up quick.
The cream is rising to the top.
Yeah.
But there's been some very, very good rugby this weekend. Now, let's just do what we always do. We have to start Red Roses because,
Let's start Red Roses.
They're our team. We're behind them 100%.
Yeah.
What did you make of that performance against Scotland?
I was pretty impressed, actually, I have to say. I think Scotland came out the blocks pretty well, and they actually put the Roses under pressure quite early on, and they sort of soaked that up and counterpunched quite effectively. I say what I really thought was having Holly Aitchison back at 10 knitted things in the back line really, really well. I mean, we've talked about this a couple of times that we thought the back line looked a little clunky at times and not overly free flowing. This was a huge step up. Zoe Harrison's done a really good job at 10 up to now, sort of steering things around. But you could see that the quality level just jumped with Holly Aitchison in there.
Yeah, I completely agree. That was basically going to be my main observation. That I think the back line with Aitchison there is so much more fluid. I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on it, but you feel like there's a bit of added threat with Aitchison's passing game because maybe there's just that slightly more creative approach. I think sometimes she pulls off the missed pass that other fly halves don't do.
She's got a bit of zip in her pass that is missing in some players. That if you've got someone like Meg Jones or Abby Dow outside, putting a bit of zip on the pass to put them into space earlier is going to make all the difference. And that's really what I mean, Tatiana Hurd, I think, had her best game of the tournament. She's probably been a little quiet up to now for such a powerful centre.
I think her biggest problem is she has to live in the shadow of Meg Jones, which is I don't think it's a negative against Tatiana Hurd. I just think outside her, she has, at the moment, probably who I would have as the Women's Player of the Year. Just outside her, doing everything.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. But Tatiana has a really powerful centre in her own, and probably hasn't been as effective up to this point in terms of what you'd expect. But she looked a lot more threatening this game. She was putting a lot more punch into the carries. And I think that is just off the timing of Aitchison's passing, which makes all the difference.
Yeah,
if you can put your 12 into holes and it's someone as powerful as Tatiana Hurd, they're going to make yards. Yeah. And I think up to now that maybe it does boil down to just the timing has just been off. They were under a really good rhythm under Holly Aitchison up to her injury, and maybe just they haven't really adapted to Harrison in the way that they probably should have.
Yeah, it's just a timing thing. Yeah.
It's just a timing and comfort thing. But with Aitchison back in the driving seat, this team, even if it didn't look already like it was on course for winning the tournament, it really looks exciting at this point.
Yeah, considering the conditions at that game as well.
It was a rough conditions.
Rough conditions, but I didn't come away with it thinking this game's been ruined by some pretty poor weather. If anything, the skills on show just were even more impressive considering.
I think you put that Red Roses team on a dry day. I think they, with the power they've got and the ability Aitchison to put those brilliant wide players through, with Kildunn coming back in as well.
Yeah,
they're potentially unstoppable. Let's hope that's the case. Well, Zoe Allcroft back in the team as well. That was good. Huge for 60 minutes.
Well, I was just about to move into the forward pack. Like, how many more plaudits can we give them? I'm running out of positive things to say because we've already said everything that needs to be said. But Zoe Aldcroft coming back in and just showing what a difference maker she is. Some of the runs she has, they are absolutely barnstorming.
Marauding. Yeah. I'll tell you who else was. I mean, I think she got man of the match. Was it Talling? Got player of the match.
Yeah.
Apologies, player of the match. No, I thought she was titanic in her carrying.
Yeah.
She,
So she's a player that's kind of been a little bit under the radar, but I think she is growing and growing and growing in this Red Roses side. Again,
yeah,
this may be part of being part of a cog with a lot of really good players around you, so it's hard to stand out. But she is beginning to really stand out as a classy operator.
yeah, yeah. I think. Well, I think in that condition as well. I think you could see certainly for a large part of that game that they tightened up the game plan and went up the guts, and Talling was just dragging players on her back. It was fantastic to watch. No, I mean, it's hard to speak highly enough about this Red Roses forward pack because even without Hannah Bottoman,
There's Kelsey Clifford.
Clifford and Muir, it's there's so much power up front for them. It's difficult to see how you stop that. I mean, the only team at the moment is the Canadians. That's the only team with the power to match, I reckon.
I think so. Before we move on to some of the other nations, anything on the Scotland performance?
Well, look, I think they mentioned in commentary. On the face of it, it looks like a not great result for a quarter-final. Scotland, on average, have conceded about, I think it's 57 points to England in the last few years in the Six Nations. In those conditions, against that Red Roses side, I thought they looked pretty competitive for a lot of that game. The likes of Gallagher, Bonar, Skeldon, Nelson, McGee, I thought they all showed up really well. Ultimately, they suffer from the fact they don't have the same power up front.
Yeah.
And they don't have the depth of England. But there were some players there who really put their hand up to say that they're class operators. And, obviously, we talked about the Lions last week. I think there will be a few Scots who fancy their chances of getting into that.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair. When you look at the bigger picture and the wider picture of women's rugby, as you say, on paper, it looks like a bit of a stuffing. But put into that context, Scotland gave their all. They threw what they could at it. They're not going to be the first, and they're definitely not going to be the last team to get beaten by the Red Roses in this fashion. So yeah, credit where credit's due to Scotland. They tried their best, and their heads didn't go down, which is all you can really ask for in those scenarios. Let's move on. You mentioned Canada.
Yeah.
What did you make of their performance up against Australia?
It's ominous would be the word that comes to mind. We talked quite early on in the tournament about what players and other teams we really like the look of, and I at the time I brought up the Canadian wingers once again, both showing just how lethal they are, and you put that in combination with the power they've got in the pack.
Yeah, I think the Goody. How the Goody is she?
She is brilliant. Forteza, I thought was brilliant. Sempt when she came on. My prediction is this could well be an England-Canada.
That's how I'm feeling as well.
Yeah, just off the back of what I've seen so far, and that's not to denigrate anyone else left in the competition to look like the most complete teams. The Canadians look ominous in terms of what they're capable of. The pack power is absolutely there. What I hadn't realised up to now was quite how good the handling in their pack is. Some of the interplay they've got forwards and backs is pretty outstanding. There was a try, I think it was for Oregon. I think it might have been her second try.
Yeah.
And some of the interplay for it was just phenomenal. Starting from a break from the forwards and pinging the ball around. And I was watching, I was thinking, that would be tough to defend. That's going to be really hard to stop, as the Australians found out. But I think the Australians can really hold their chins up after this tournament. I don't think anyone really expected them to go deep in the competition. I think they were probably a bit surprised to make it through the groups past the USA. And they've shown that they've got some real potential in that squad. I mean, the wheels on Miller was phenomenal.
Yeah.
If you're producing players like that, eventually you'll come good, I reckon.
Yeah. I get a feeling that maybe this tournament's going to be a little bit of a catalyst for some of the other nations to hopefully start investing in their women's teams a bit more, so then you can unearth these talents that there obviously are sprinkled across these teams. If you find a few more of them, or get the ones who are then there and kind of, polish those diamonds a little bit more to make them a bit more refined, there's a lot of potential out there in these teams, and I think a lot of it, from what I've watched, is where teams have dropped off. A lot of it's kind of been fitness based as well, which kind of shows that a lot of it is just down to kind of maybe some of these players aren't as professional, well, in professional teams, or perhaps just aren't at that level as some of the other teams. I think that was quite obvious, because obviously the scores are usually they run away in the second half is usually the running theme. But I agree with you on Canada. It is really impressive how they move the point of attack, just with those little shifts, the little movements within the pack. It is very clever, and they are probably the closest thing to the Red Roses I've seen in this tournament, which would make it a really interesting final if that is how it turns up. But there's definitely at least one team that will have something to say about that, and that is the Black Ferns, who really, really, really put the sword to South Africa after an interesting first 20 minutes, we'll say.
Well, I mean, they were in 10-all at half time.
Yeah.
What I would say is New Zealand's handling and ruthlessness when they've got players over is probably second to none. They're probably the best at picking a team off. But South Africa showed that if you've got a pack that's capable of putting it on them, they will struggle with that. They don't really have the same level of power game. And I have to say, the South African pack itself was phenomenal. If you haven't watched South Africa in this tournament, you're going to hear more about them in the next few years, because that is a team that is well on the up. New Zealand, I mean, Sorensen McGee, 19-year-old, scoring, I think, 400 tries this tournament, something ridiculous. You know, she's absolutely lethal. Miller at 7.
Yeah, I think she looks
ridiculous. Yeah. Portia Woodman's still showing that she's got it. Holmes at 15. Great, just pops up where she's needed and creates the overlap. You know, traits that you really associate with types, really. That ability to manipulate a game and create overlap when you need them. That they have absolutely got that in spades. But they were put under the cosh in that first half by the South African pack, and ultimately, you know, what you talked about before, you know, the fitness won out in the end.
Yeah, that was probably the game where it was most evident, because there was a few tries that the New Zealand were able to score. It's because the South African line hadn't even got back to defend in time. It's really hard to defend when you haven't got a defensive line.
As I can attest to my experience at the weekend, if you keep making big players sprint back towards their try line, you know, eventually they're going to tire out and they're not going to. But for South Africa, that will come. You know, you put them in a consistent professional environment, like the Red Roses have found in the last 7 to 10 years. If you just keep putting them in professional environments where they've got the time and capacity to just focus on playing rugby, and they don't have to worry about, you know, the day job or, you know, obviously having to do the childcare and that kind of thing. They can actually outside of it and just focus on, you know, the pro rugby side of things. The fitness levels, you know, they get so high so quickly compared to the other teams. You know, you can see it. I think the Welsh team's a good example of this. Actually, lots of very talented players, but not enough of them are in consistent environments to actually showcase that for a full 80 minutes consistently. I think South Africa, I don't know what their plans are managing their women's team. I would imagine they'll be extensive, and I would hope it would be something around a domestic competition.
Yeah.
But I think it's not going to be long before you're talking about South Africa World Cup contenders.
Let's hope so. Your mic keeps cutting in and out.
Okay, well, just have to go through that.
Okay. Hopefully, we'll see. So I've definitely seen some noise coming out on rugby social media about, like, South Africa women watch this space. So hopefully that is true. And then the fourth quarterfinal, Rory, heartbreak for the Irish. I couldn't help but feel for them.
Yeah.
But ultimately, France coming out on top. But that was, what a game that was to watch.
Phenomenal. I mean, so tense. Dreadful conditions in the first half, which Ireland managed magnificently. Scored 2 really good tries. Jugang, we spoke about last week, scoring a phenomenal try. Aoife Wafer making her World Cup debut and making impacts. She was phenomenal amongst many Irish players, but her in particular. I thought, is it O'Brien? Is it Cathy O'Brien?
Talk about the 10.
Yeah.
Dana.
So far off. Dana O'Brien at 10. her best game of the tournament that I've kicked really, really well, really smartly in the conditions. Kept sending the French team going backwards towards their own try line. But ultimately, the French were able to get a bit of momentum and get themselves back in the game, despite some of the worst discipline I've ever seen from a team.
Do we talk about that one incident?
Well, we should mention the bite. Again, I've talked about this a couple of times. We don't like to focus on officials. This was brought to their attention. You've got a TMO, and it was not a difficult thing to spot.
No.
How have they missed that? How are they not dealing with that on the field?
That falls into the category of supporting those who say that refs and TMO just kind of don't want the limelight sometimes. Some do, some don't. And perhaps they didn't want to make a controversial call, despite how blatantly obvious it was.
Just absolutely shirked it. And beyond that, I think France were lucky to get away with I think it was the 2 yellow cards they had outside of that. Yeah. 3 yellow cards, in fact. They were lucky to just get 3. Their discipline was atrocious, but in the end, they just had enough quality to overcome the Irish. And, from Ireland's perspective, they're really early in this journey, right? Like a lot of teams in the Cup, they're really early on in the journey of building a women's team and a women's setup. They have come on so far so quickly.
Yeah,
they're another one that I think before long you're going to be talking about as contenders.
Yeah, considering a lot of their kind of big name players are mid to low 20s.
Yeah, well, you can see it. It's a young team that's developed very, very quickly to this point, to the point where they almost by rights should have been in a semi-final. Then they're not going to be far off pushing for that soon. As for France, I mean, some real brain fades at times. Started pretty quickly when they tipped the ball over their own try line and put it down. Looked at times incredibly average.
Yes, it's not the same France we saw in the Six Nations.
No. At times really, really poor. Really struggled under the pressure, the Irish. And then just had a couple of moments of magic. The Grisey try was really well taken. Just picking off defenders.
Yeah.
So it's so hacky to talk about French inconsistency, but they are just the great enigma at times.
Yeah, it's not helpful when they play into the stereotype, is it?
Yeah, I don't want to be sat here talking about which French side is going to turn up. But on this occasion, 3 or 4 different French sides turned up.
It doesn't help that narrative. But it does set up a pair of semi-finals, which are both very mouth-watering. Canada versus New Zealand, I think, is going to be a humdinger. And England versus France, depending on which of the 4 Frances turn up, has the potential to be a humdinger as well.
Yeah, 100%. I'm nailing my colours to the mast. I think it's going to be an England-Canada. I could see it being an England-New Zealand final.
Yeah.
And I could see it being pretty much every other permutation as well. The finals to call. Gut feel says the Red Roses are the safest bet of the 4.
Yeah, I saw somewhere that it's the odds percentages. It's a 70% chance of England making a final, 13% chance New Zealand, 7% France, 6% Canada, which I didn't agree with, and that probably doesn't add up to 100%. I think the odds are very heavily in the Red Roses' favour, but I think we do need to remember that France aren't to be taken lightly. And as you say, every permutation could happen still. My suspicion, and the final I want to see is Red Roses versus Canada, because I think those are the 2 most evenly matched teams in the competition in terms of the overall game they have. I think if it is England versus the Black Ferns, it's hard to see beyond that Red Rose pack really arm wrestling that one, but we'll wait and see how it pans out. But we're getting close to the end of the tournament, Rory. So far, it's been magnificent.
Oh, it's been by some distance the best Women's World Cup. It's been so well supported, so well marketed. You can see the videos everywhere. You can see the players popping up all over the shop. I think I'm sure it feeds the narrative of people who think sports being rammed down their throats. But as someone who absolutely has enjoyed the tournament from start to finish, it has been so well promoted. And I mean, honestly, the games have been superb. You know, the teams that are no longer in the tournament really liked the Fiji team, loved the Samoa's story, loved the Brazilian story. You know, the Italians were really good in patches. Obviously, had the storyline in the USA, and she's turning up to do sort of selfies and sessions with the kids and things. She's still well involved. You know, it's all things considered, it's as good a World Cup as any I've seen in rugby, men's or women's.
I haven't got a negative word to say about it, nor would I want to find one, because why would I? Let's turn our heads to the other international competition taking place at this moment, Rory. We haven't really touched on it so far on the podcast. But the Rugby Championship taking place, which is kind of the Southern Hemisphere's equivalent to Six Nations, I think it's fair to say, between South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, Argentina. It was round 4 of the competition this weekend. And I think for anyone who has been following it, they have been getting absolutely treated with some magnificent rugby, some really surprising results, really competitive fixtures across the board.
Yeah.
Anyone can beat anyone in that competition. Generally speaking, what are your takeaways of that competition and kind of what you've seen, of what you've been able to watch of it?
Well, I think there's 2 ways you can read it. One way is that it's an incredibly evenly matched competition of really high quality rugby and high quality teams, and it is in a lot of ways, and that does account for a lot of the ways you can look at it. You know, the fact that every team has managed to beat and lose every team is a testament to a tournament that is genuinely exciting. It's a bit annoying that the timing's been, you don't always catch every game.
Yeah.
That's not really in our control. I was able to watch the New Zealand South Africa game on Saturday, and the first half, New Zealand were phenomenal, and South Africa were in many ways quite lucky to go in 10-7 down at half time. And in the second half, South Africa came out and just blew them away. I mean, if you haven't seen the scoreline, it was New Zealand 10, South Africa 43.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a shellacking in the second half. And South Africa played some rugby that, I mean, it's rare old stuff. It harked back to some of the best teams you've ever watched. Argentina coming back from a tight loss against Australia last week to keep hold of a tight lead and win it this week in a sold-out Suncorp in Brisbane.
Yeah.
Which
Rugby's on the up in Australia.
The NRL haven't sold out Suncorp for something like 7 or 8 years, and now the Wallabies are selling it out. You know, rugby's not dead in Australia, I'll tell you that. Ultimately, it is a really competitive tournament, but these are also 4 teams that, in a lot of ways, are quite inconsistent at the moment.
I think that's also a fair way of looking at it. That could explain why everyone's beating everyone and everyone's losing to everyone.
Well, I do think that does explain it. It's and I'm not saying this to say these teams aren't all brilliant, because they absolutely are, and they've all earned the right to be in the mixer to win the tournament overall. But performances week to week by all of these sides have varied quite wildly.
Yeah.
In particular, the South Africa side, which seems to go from one week being distinctly average to the next week being the greatest team to have played the game. Closely followed by the Kiwis, who have pretty much
done the same, but the other way around.
Followed the same trajectory, but the other way around. Argentina continue to be the masters of the brilliant and the maddening.
Yeah.
They go from scoring the try of the tournament to throwing the ball over their own try line for the opposition wing or whatever. They're just completely capable of both.
Yeah.
Australia have probably been the most consistent side, and Australia have just sort of remained very good and have won the games they should win that were just too much for them. That being said, Southern Hemisphere rugby right now is looking pretty strong, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm considering this week it was announced that training squad for the England team ahead of the Autumn Internationals,
yeah,
they're not far away, and it's making me wonder. I think these 4 teams specifically coming into the autumn internationals, they're going to be hot because they're coming off the back of this tournament. They are seemingly all going to be in quite good form. It makes me worry for the age-old debate of the Northern Hemisphere versus Southern Hemisphere that kind of takes place at the autumn internationals. Obviously, England did beat Argentina twice in Argentina, and they've gone on to show that they are no mugs. So maybe we're underestimating how good our own teams are. But I can't help but watch that second half by South Africa, for example, and I don't see any team beating that South Africa if that's the South Africa that turns up.
Well, fortunately, England don't have to play then this year.
That's true,
which actually in some ways is a bit of a shame. But yeah, I mean that South Africa side is going to be hard for anyone to beat. I would still say that Ireland and France would both back themselves, and England would all definitely back themselves to.
Oh yeah, for sure.
At the very least, go close with South Africa, if not beat them, particularly at home. I don't think they're that far to say that none of those teams can compete. But
not with how inconsistent they've been.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. But that being said, they're definitely capable of beating all of those teams as well. Yeah. So I think at the moment the top 5 or 6 teams in the world are all pretty similar level and could all beat each other on the day. You know, I look at England are playing Australia first up. I sort of expect us to win that, but we didn't last.
No.
And Australia looked better. But then again, you know, England just hardly black it to come and run their attack.
Yeah.
They pushed Wigglesworth over to the defence. I don't really know what the plan is there, but we'll wait and see.
But Blackett, we championed that. We championed that from Argentina. So thank you for listening. We did. Thank you for listening.
No, I think that's a good hire. I don't know necessarily about pushing Wigglesworth over to defence and El Abd having managed a good defence in Argentine skills, and don't quite know exactly what the thinking behind that is. But I say at this moment in Borthwick we trust.
Yeah.
But you know, I think England are on the rise at an already good level. I think they'll back themselves to go 4 wins out of 4 this autumn, but they could equally go 2 or even 1 win out of against any of those teams.
Yeah, it makes for an interesting time. I'm looking forward to that period of time. Of which, in that window, Roy, we're going to go watch some rugby at the Rec, aren't we? We're going to go watch the England A team versus New Zealand A, and then try and find a pub somewhere in Bath to watch the England versus Fiji game, which may be the one.
Correct. Yeah, we sure are. I'm very much looking forward to that. We love an A game. You missed the last one through your horrible gallstones.
Well, yeah, well documented ailments. Thankfully, it seems like I am fully on form and able to participate in the jovial nature of our socialising.
Yeah, well, I look forward to that entirely. And Bath's a great city to go and watch it, even if it slightly gives me... but no, I mean, I think with the Rugby Championship, the long and short of it is, it's actually just a genuinely exciting competition. Australia, the Bledisloe Cup for the first time in, God knows, 20 years almost. And they're making some good noises about really going for it. Argentina could well end up being in the mix to win the tournament for the first time, which would be great to see. I'd love to see them pick up the trophy. And, you know, New Zealand and South Africa are both capable of being the best and 8th best teams in the world at any time. So it is exciting down there.
Yeah, it seems really odd to say this off the backdrop of what we said. But are we yet seeing any signs of South Africa's decline?
No. If anything, they're potentially going to get better based on the players I've seen them start to bring through.
Yeah.
I'm gonna not attempt and say the name of the new young fly half.
Sasha Feinberg and Gomezulu.
Yeah, thank you for rescuing me from that one. If he can stop
his kicking.
Well, no, I think stop getting injured. Actually,
yeah,
bad injury record. He will unlock that South African back line. You see the likes of Fassi and Kane and Moody start to Ethan Hooker, I think it is, who's just come in on the wing. They've got some, well, as we saw in the under-20s, they got some serious forwards coming through. I'll be honest, I don't see South African rugby dipping for some time. The rest of them just got to catch up. Yeah. We're just going to have to catch up because they're going great guns.
Yeah. Well, It was wishful thinking, Rory. It was wishful thinking.
It was wishful thinking, I'm afraid.
It's also based off the fact that I'm seeing what looks like a resurgent New Zealand. What I'm seeing is like an Australia side that's all of a sudden got a bit of belief behind them and a bit of an identity, and an Argentina side that is very quickly becoming a very similar level to those three, if not already. So, as an England fan who is desperate for more England victories and England trophies, it's just wishful thinking that I'm just harking back to 03.
Well, what I would say, just to put a slightly positive spin on that, is I genuinely think England are producing at the moment the best players they've produced since before that 03 tournament.
Yes, Rory, that's the optimism I require, and I agree. I do think the pathway, they call it, is a real thing of beauty at the moment, and I think we will see the positives of that over the next 3 to 5 years. As I think we will probably start to see basically a full team of players that are like children of that pathway. So I'm looking forward to that. We just have to remain patient, optimistic, and stick with the plan, Rory.
That's the mission statement.
If we go 1 out of 4 at the Autumn Internationals again, maybe I won't be quite so positive. But,
no, positivity, David. Positivity.
Yeah, we are a positive podcast, although maybe a little fickle at times. Right, Rory, I think our flight is close to landing. So whilst the pilot puts the seatbelt sign on, you raise your lap tray, the wheels come down, getting ready for landing. Do you have any final thoughts before we disembark on this journey that we've been on?
Oh, Canada, and up the Red Roses.
We've been Rux Balls and Oval Balls. Hope you've enjoyed episode 3 of season 2. We've certainly enjoyed talking about it. If you have enjoyed it, make sure to like, follow, subscribe, listen, rate, whatever it is you do. And we'll be back next week with more rugby nonsense. Ta-ra.
Ta-da.